Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Jaya Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Abhay Sharnaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Shata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveta Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Jainitai Gaur Premanande Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Today we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 12, Creation of the Kumaras and Others. Text number 49. Tato paramupadaya sasargaya manodade Tato paramupadaya Sasargaya manodade Tato paramupadaya Sasargaya manodade Tato paramupadaya Sasargaya manodade Tataha Thereafter Aparam another Upadaya having accepted Saha he Sargaya in the matter of creation Manaha mind Dade gave attention. Okay, so a very small purport, and I think, the chapter is almost finished. So We might try to finish the chapter today. Let's see. Okay, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation: Thereafter Brahma accepted another body in which sex life was not forbidden, and thus he engaged himself in the matter of further creation. Purport: In his former body, which was transcendental, affection for sex life was forbidden, and Brahma therefore had to accept another body to allow himself to be connected with sex. He thus engaged himself in the matter of creation, his former body transformed into fog, as previously described. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpaturubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So remember, the context of this part of Srimad Bhagavatam is creation. Specifically here, Srimad Bhagavatam is talking about the secondary creation. So in the 12th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we hear of 4 types of destruction: the partial annihilation of the universe, the complete annihilation of the universe, the cessation of one's material existence or liberation. That is also a type of destruction as well. There's a verse, I think it's in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Jiragnir Analo Yatha. It says something like, if you, by practicing bhakti yoga, by practicing devotional service, that fire of devotion gradually dissolves away your subtle body. Just as the fire of digestion, it dissolves, or it doesn't dissolve, but it digests, it breaks down the food. So in the same way, by practicing Krishna consciousness, our subtle body is dissolved away. And it's the subtle body which is the culprit. Prabhupada says it's the subtle body which is the deciding factor of what happens to us after death. If the subtle body still exists, it's full of material desires, then the soul is forced to take another birth according to the arrangement of the demigods. Karmana neva detrena jantur deho papadyate. If the subtle body is dissolved away, then one goes straight back to the spiritual world. So Srila Prabhupada says the key essential deciding factor is the condition of your mind at the time of death. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he coined a saying which became quite popular within ISKCON: die before you die. So that's what we want to do. We want to die before we die. If we don't die before we die, then death will force us to die. We want to keep living. We want to create an artificial situation. We consider our material body to have somewhat spiritual qualities of Satchitananda. We consider our material body will go on living forever. We know, Yudhishthira Maharaj explains, right? That the most wonderful thing, the most wondrous thing in this material world is that people think that they will continue to live when right in front of them, they're seeing so many people dying. I think I was mentioning some time back that the way you can ascertain your birth and death, because we can't remember our birth, right? And we can't conceive of our death. because we don't remember how we've died previously, in previous births. So, Lord Krishna explains in the 11th canto that you can ascertain your birth by witnessing the birth of your child. When you see the birth of your child, you can ascertain, okay, so this is how I took birth. And when you see the passing away of your father, or your parents, or your grandparents, then you can ascertain this will happen to me as well. Just like we came back from outback New South Wales just yesterday. We were in Wagga Wagga for a couple of weeks. And on our way back, you're driving along the road and you see so much, unfortunately, roadkill, right? This is something we saw so much, especially when we went along the east coast of Australia. We went up to Cairns in the northern tip of Queensland. This was maybe 2019, this Cairns trip that we made. And then on our way back, we didn't want to come along the coast. We want to cut down our time and cut down the distance. So if you go along the coast of Australia, it's a curve, obviously, so it will take much longer. The distance will be greater. So then we came through inland, Queensland. Very, very hot, very, very dry. And the sand, literally you'll see the red sand there as well. But there, literally every minute, you'll see a couple of dead kangaroos or wombats or something like that. So, and cars are just driving as if, they don't care. So you're seeing death right in front of you. But you think that, this won't happen to me. This is the great wonder of this mature world. And this is the great illusion of Maya. It covers our intelligence and it drags us down. So Brahma has accepted another body in which sex life was not forbidden, and thus he engaged himself in the matter of further creation. Now remember, in his secondary creation, Lord Brahma is responsible for using the ingredients which has been supplied by Lord Vishnu, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, etc., to then construct bodily forms. Now, one would say that if one is not Krishna conscious or one is not spiritually inclined or religiously inclined, one would say, look, there's so much variety of physical species. Definitely they must have come about randomly, spontaneously and randomly, because the variety is so great. But Srila Prabhupada's scientific disciple, His Grace Srila Prabhu, maybe you've heard of him. He's written a very nice book as well about Vedic astronomy, cosmology. So I was listening in a lecture, and he actually sort of turned the tables to them on that particular point. He said that, yes, there's so much physical variety of material forms, and I'm not talking about dead material forms, like, the walls and, stones and all that sort of stuff. I'm talking about, like, living beings with a soul inside. Yes, there's so much physical variety, but if you look carefully, they all have senses. They all have the capacity to think, to will. So, if I was an intelligent creator, like Gopinath, he's the most intelligent creator, then to make my job easy, I would have the same blueprint for everybody, but I would just change their physical shape. That's it. Right? So we are human beings. We have a human body. We have eyes, nose, right? Tongue, everything. And a bird also has eyes. It has nose. It has a beak with a tongue inside. Snakes, whatever. You even take trees. Trees can also see, you can say. They can touch. Like a tree will grow towards the sunlight. If you have a vine which is growing along a fence, and then you put a stick next to it, mysteriously, the vines will grow towards the stick. Now, how does a tree know how to do that? Right? So it can sense, it has that capacity. So even trees, they have tongues, they have mouths in the form of their roots. So in principle, every single physical variety of life has these 5 senses. The only difference is how they look physically. The human body doesn't look like a frog. A frog doesn't look like a tree. A tree doesn't look like an ant. But principally speaking, in terms of the blueprint, they're all the same. Right? They all have a mind, senses, free will, like that. So Sariputta Prabhu is saying that if I was an intelligent creator, this is what I would do. To make my job easy, I would create a template of how a physical species is supposed to be. So 5 senses, mind, intelligence, false ego. But I'd simply change the external form. So in this way, Brahma makes his job very easy for himself. All he has to do is just change the shape of what a body is supposed to look like. And here also we're going to see, later on in this chapter, that Brahma goes on to create the first man and the first woman. Does anyone know who is the first man? Yes, Prabhu?
Adam and Eve.
Who?
Adam and Eve.
Okay, Adam and Eve. In terms of the Vedic context, in terms of Srimad Bhagavatam, who is it? Swayambhuva Manu. And his wife is? The first woman is Shatarupa. Shatarupa. So she's the first woman. So you can say that they're the original Adam and Eve, at least for this, for the first Manvantar. So the reason why he creates this is again to make his job easy. Because before he did that, right, he created the Narada Muni, and then he didn't want to procreate. He was transcendental from birth. And then he created the 4 Kumars, and then they didn't want to procreate. They wanted to remain as brahmacharis. So he was having difficulty. He was creating one personality after another, and this was way too slow. So he thought to himself, I want to create a self-replicating system. I want to create a self-actuating system. This is intelligence of Brahma. All he has to do is just create a man, a woman, and he has to utilize that lust, right, that kama, which exists in the mature world, and he just has to infuse that living entity with that. So then the first man and the first woman would automatically go on procreating. They would create children, and then their children will create children, and like this, the creation will flourish. And we see the same principle also in like trees as well, right? The banyan tree, or whatever, a fruit tree, it creates seeds, so many seeds it creates, which then go on to create so many trees, which again create so many seeds. This is the intelligence of Brahma, right? And this is what people are applying also in their workplace as well. Like I remember when I was working as an engineer for a short while before I joined the temple. Then I was working on the R&D side, the production side. And every time in the production, when there was some shortcoming, there was some time-consuming process, then my boss would tell me, okay, you need to create a jig. So what is a jig? A jig is basically a mechanical device which would make a process very streamlined, which would make a process very easy. So for example, we were manufacturing catheters, which are like things they put inside your body to diagnose blockages in your arteries and things like that. So in one of the parts of the production process, what was happening is that the production worker, he was getting a catheter, and one by one he had to measure the length of the catheter and physically cut the device. He had to physically cut the catheter. And then he gets the next catheter, measure, cut, measure, cut. It was too time consuming. So then, okay, make a jig. So then what this jig does is it's already set out, this mechanical device, it's already set out at a certain distance, and it has 10 holes in it. So the guy, the production worker, just has to load up 10 catheters, bang, press the button, and all 10 of them are cut. Right? So we apply this principle in our day-to-day life as well. We want to cut down time. So Brahma does that. as well in his creation. Of course, the real purpose of cutting down time, kalam nayet akhilam iti upadesha saram, Nectar of Instruction rather, says, the real purpose of time is to tannam rupa charitadi sukirtananu smrityo karmena rasana manasi nyoja, to nicely use your tongue and your mind in always glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we're cutting down time, and then with the time we have, how are we using that time? That is important. Because Krishna says in the Gita that he is time. Kalosmi lokakshaya krit pravridam. So cutting down time is nice. Lord Brahma is also cutting down time, but he's using it in devotional service to Krishna. In fact, his work is also devotional service to Krishna as well. He got the order at the beginning of the universe when it was created. Lord Krishna said that your devotional service is to populate this universe. Why? Because the conditioned souls desired it. So Krishna mercifully fulfills their desire. So Lord Brahma is an empowered personality. We have the famous example of Srimad Bhagavatam at the beginning of what it means to actually be empowered. Arjuna, we know, is a great marksman. He's a great wielder of the Gandiva bow. And he fought with so many great personalities, right? And he came out victorious. But then we see that after Lord Krishna passed away, he disappeared rather from this mature world. He went to the next universe to continue his pastimes. Then Arjuna was escorting the queens of Dwarka to Hastinapur. 16,000 queens. And he was fearless because he had his Gandiva. He could do it. Srimad Bhagavatam explains a small handful of cowherd men came. Now these are not the cowherd men from Vrindavan. There were some rogues. They were just simple cowherd men. I don't know, maybe they had just had some sticks, some shovels, something like that. And they came to take these queens. And Arjuna got his bow, his Gandiva, and he went to fire, but he couldn't stop the enemy. He couldn't kill the enemy. He was powerless because the potency which Krishna was investing in him, Krishna had now purposely withdrawn it. And the acharyas do explain that these cowherd men were actually Krishna. So Krishna himself came in the form of these cowherd men. But it taught Arjuna a very important lesson. Arjuna started remembering Krishna's instructions to him in the Bhagavad Gita. Now that Krishna had disappeared from this world, he lost his power, he lost his ability. He was such a chivalrous fighter. He was the hero of the Kurukshetra war. But now he couldn't even defeat some practically unarmed cowherd men who had come to kidnap these queens. So, Krishna Shakti Vina Nahe Tahare Pravartana. Unless we have the empowerment of Krishna, Chaitanya Charitamrita says it is not possible to spread the glories of the holy name. And what is the qualification? Srila Prabhupada mentions in a purport, we simply have to be sincere and serious. These two words, starting with S. We have to be sincere and we have to be serious. So serious we know. We have to be serious. Like Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, he was so grave. In a picture of Srila Prabhupada, he was like so grave, right? I think the Sanskrit word is gambhir. To be grave. Because he had such a great mission to fulfill. He had limited time. He came to America when he was 70 years old. Prabhupada didn't know how long his physical body would last for. For him, every day was an emergency situation. Therefore, he had to enlist the help of anyone and everyone who would come forward. He had to award sannyas to people who were so young, 19, 20 years old. By Vedic standard, they may have not been qualified. But Srila Prabhupada gave them the qualification. He gave them the empowerment. Same thing I was hearing about Indra Prabhu as well. when he started the 24-hour kirtan in Vrindavan, he experienced a similar situation. He went there and all by himself, he just used to sit in the Krishna Balaram temple, just singing. And he used to lay out a mat. And on the mat, there'll be kartals, there'll be wampers, there'll be a tambourine, there'll be, I don't know, a guitar, something like that. And he'll just, of course, there'll be a mridanga, a djembe, and he'll just sit there on the mridanga, on the harmonium, singing. And he explains that when some Babaji or someone used to come and visit the temple, some sadhu, some person who's not even good at kirtan, he would just say to them, come, join, come, pick up that kartal, pick up that drum, just play, do what you can. And people came. People who didn't know how to play anything, they came. And by his empowerment, by the empowerment of the deities there in Vrindavan, Shri Radha Shyam-Sundar, some of these people actually joined the 24-hour kirtan department. So we have to be serious and we have to be sincere. What does it mean to be sincere? Well, I was thinking about this for some time, and then I actually came up with a word to describe sincerity, which I think is appropriate. I mean, others may have their definition. But sincere means to be genuine with yourself, right? To not be duplicitous. And this is a quality which is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita as well. Lord Krishna mentions this quality of non-duplicity. Simplicity. Simplicity means to not have two faces. When you're dealing with a certain type of people, or when you're behind closed doors, you act in a certain way, and maybe in the public eye you act in a different way. This is not simple behavior. You're not being genuine. You're not being for real. So being sincere means being honest and genuine to Krishna and in Krishna's service. If you're good at something, then you can go before Krishna, you can go before Radha Gopinath, and you can tell him, look, I prefer to do this service, I'm good at this, somehow, by your arrangement, I have certain qualities, I have certain talents. So thank you for engaging me in this service, like that. And if you're struggling in Krishna consciousness, then again, if you're sincere, then again, you'll go before Radha Gopinath, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, Shishi, Gauranitai, and you will reveal to them your shortcomings. Then, if you do that, Krishna will give you the Shakti. Then with that Krishna Shakti, you can go out and be more successful in practicing devotional service. Now, isn't this intelligence? We were talking about intelligence, right? This is intelligence. That if you're struggling or if you're good at something, go before Krishna, be genuine, be sincere. Krishna will be pleased. He'll give you more power, more empowerment, more Shakti to do devotional service better. And then you do devotional service better, and then again you go before Krishna and you thank him for engaging in his service, and then he becomes more pleased and he empowers you more. And you continue like that. Just like in book distribution, Naveen Nirada Prabhu. I was reading a little something about what he said, and I'm sure he mentions this in his lectures as well. But he mentions that we should not have the fruitive mentality. Now, this is in the context of book distribution, right? We should not have the fruitive mentality when we're distributing books. We should not become proud, and we should not be self-centered. So, he says that when you're distributing books, you may be struggling to stop people. People may be stopping, but they may not be taking a book, whatever. So finally, if someone takes a book, then what do? What would you do if finally a book went out? After hours, you're struggling. Finally, someone gives a good donation, they take a book. What would you do? I've done it. You get proud? Yeah. I've done it, right? Naturally, that's the reaction that comes. If we delve on that celebration, I've done it, or we get proud, then again, Krishna will teach us the lesson again. So Nrsimha Prabhu says that as soon as a book goes out, thank Krishna. Thank you, Krishna, for distributing this book. I didn't distribute this book. Krishna, you distributed this book. I was your nimitta matra. I was your instrument. Thank you for using me to fulfill your desire. Then Krishna will be pleased by your detachment. Mahaprabhu era bhakta ganera vairagya pradhan yahan dekhi priti hana gaura bhagavan. The single most quality of the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, which shone very brightly, was their vairagya, was their detachment from material existence. So Krishna being pleased, this devotee has learned that he's not the doer. He's simply acting on my behalf. Krishna will give you more Shakti. Then another book will go out straight away. Then again you thank Krishna. Thank you, Krishna. And like that, if you have the proper consciousness, Nrsimha Prabhu explains, then you can become an effective instrument in the hands of Guru and Gauranga. And the other point is to not be self-centered. And this can affect devotees in Krishna consciousness. I was affected by this. I'm sure so many devotees have been affected by this. And still, even though we advance in Krishna consciousness, it can come back again. It's a tactic of Maya to make us forget Krishna, to be self-centered. What does it mean? For example, even in the context of devotional service, you can become self-centered. So, for example, you're practicing devotional service and you start thinking about yourself more than thinking about Krishna. Oh, these are my talents. Or, the other Vaishnavas, they're talking amongst themselves, but no one is talking about me. Oh, I'm so unqualified. Oh, I'm so fallen. Isn't it? Sometimes devotees will say that. When you ask someone, please do this service, then sometimes someone will say, I'm too fallen, I'm not qualified to do this service. So this is actually a self-centered mentality. Again, it's coming back to I. If your bicycle has a flat tire, and you ask the screwdriver or the spanner, okay, spanner, I'm going to use you to fix this flat tire of the bike. And if the spanner says, I'm too fallen to perform this task, you'd be quite surprised. The spanner is simply to be used by the person who owns the bike to fix the bike. The spanner should not put his own interpretation, his own likes, dislikes about whether he should fix the bike or whether he should not fix the bike. The spanner is just an instrument. So in the same way, we are just the instruments of Krishna. That's why Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, they decry these three other processes, karma, jnana, and yoga, as stumbling blocks, right, to pure devotional service. They may assist one to come to bhakti. Well, actually, let me correct myself. Bhakti sanjayate bhakti. Bhakti is the cause of bhakti. So you may practice jnana yoga, you may practice karma yoga or ashtanga yoga. And if you exclusively practice just that, without getting any sukriti in devotion, then you will still not come to bhakti. Without the mercy of a Vaishnava, you won't come to bhakti. So in one sense, it's like a conditioning, which stops us from surrendering fully to the lotus feet of Krishna. So we as instruments of Krishna, when we have some service to do, we should put aside our likes, dislikes, everything, and simply be used as instruments of Krishna. And there's a fine line between karma yoga and bhakti yoga, and I'll finish with this point. There's a very fine line between karma yoga and bhakti yoga. Karma yoga is known as nishkam, and bhakti yoga is known as naishkarmya. You probably heard of these terms. Nishkam means that you're attached to doing, you're attached to serving Krishna in a certain way, but you renounce the results. Does that make sense? You're attached to doing devotional service in a certain way, but you renounce the results. Krishna, I'm doing this for your pleasure. I don't want to take anything from this devotional act. You take the benefit, you take the glory, you take the happiness, the pleasure. I don't take anything for myself. Naishkarmya means, now this is bhakti, this is real buddhi yoga. Naishkarmya means you're not attached to serving Krishna in a certain way. And you renounce the results as well. Does it make sense? Nishkam means you're attached to serving Krishna in a certain way. Naishkarmya means you're not attached to serving Krishna in a certain way. That fine, subtle difference makes all the difference. For example, when I was a new bhakta, I was very attached to just sitting down, just doing kirtan, like that. Even when I joined the temple, I would just sit down, just do kirtan, like that. And that's just what I wanted to do. Not because Krishna was being benefited, not because it pleased Krishna, but because I wanted to do it. I wanted to serve Krishna in that way. So again, it was not about Krishna, it was about me. I'm attached to doing kirtan, and not that kirtan is a bad thing or anything like that. But in the context of Nishkam, it was not about I'm doing kirtan because Krishna likes it, because it's pleasing to Krishna, because it's the Yuga Dharma, this, that. But I was doing it because I want to do it. And then maybe there were some other services which were more important at that particular time, place, circumstance. And then I may have neglected that. Because, again, I want to sit down and I want to do kirtan. So this is an example, very paltry example of Nishkam Karma Yoga. You're still doing service to Krishna, but you're attached to doing it in your way. So you're not fully surrendered yet. Nishkarmya means you do exactly what needs to be done. At a certain point in time, different services take different priorities. My Guru Maharaj says, something like book distribution, Harinam, they're always a priority because this is part of the Sankirtan Yagya. Right? Book distribution, Harinam, Prasad distribution, they always take priority. Other services, sometimes they rise to prominence at a certain point in time, and then when that time is gone, they'll recede again. And then after some time, again, they'll come to prominence, and then they'll go away. So, if you're just busy engaged in the core activities, let's say book distribution, Harinam, but then there needs to be another service that needs to be done. And you say, no, I'm not going to do this because I'm engaged in book distribution, Harinam, whatever, which is good, it's glorious. But still, if the Guru is saying, look, I want you to stop that for a period of time and I just want you to focus on something else. And you say, no, I'm attached to doing this, then that's not actually pure devotional service. Pure devotional service means, actually Srila Prabhupada's definition of Vaidhi Bhakti is you do it because I'm telling you to do it. You do it because the Guru tells you to do it, not because you want to do it. So this is the pure standard which we're striving for. Yes, we have our likes and dislikes in Krishna consciousness, but if you read the last chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, so don't skip to the last chapter, please read the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm not sure if we're still doing the CC classes in the evening. Okay, they're stopped for now. But, okay, if you come to the last chapter, there you'll see quoted, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami quotes a very famous verse which is given by Krishna's topmost devotee, Srimati Radharani. Something that we should all strive for, okay? She says that if doing something is giving me great pain, but it's giving Krishna pleasure, then that activity which is giving me pain is the very source of my greatest happiness. And if doing something is giving me happiness, but it's giving Krishna pain, then I consider that activity which is giving me happiness to be the very source of my greatest misery and pain. So again, we want to get rid of this self-centered attitude. And we want to do things as an instrument of Krishna, for Krishna's pleasure, being guided by the Vaishnavas. Real wealth in bhakti, my Guru Maharaj explains, is guidance. The wealth of guidance, the wealth of the Vaishnava's association, if you have that, then the more wealthy you are in Krishna consciousness. Okay, so we just covered one verse today, text 49, so we'll continue from text 50 tomorrow. Any questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.